Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that the clerk report House Committee Substitute 1.
Clerk, please report.
House Committee Substitute 1 to Senate Bill 150.
Gentleman from Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Committee Substitute 1, I'm going to quickly try to go through that, and I'll go section by section. First, in Section 1, it says that school districts shall notify parents of any health or mental health services that relate to human sexuality and get parental consent to any of those services before administering. Next, it says any discussion in regards to these issues shall be discussed with the parents. KDE shall not require or recommend policy or procedures for the use of pronouns that do not conform to the biological sex of a student. Shall not require school employees to use pronouns. Makes an exemption for sharing information when there is neglect or abuse. Prior to doing any well-being assessments or questionnaires, the district shall get parental consent. It exempts medical and mental health procedures in cases of emergency. In Section 2, children grade 5 and below shall not receive instruction or curriculum on human sexuality, and children grade 6 and above may only receive that curriculum after parental consent. Section 3 lays out guidelines for the use of restrooms, locker rooms, and shower rooms, and says that districts shall develop a policy for the use of these facilities in accordance with the guidelines laid out in this bill. Section 4, no health care provider shall perform surgery on a minor for the purpose of changing their sex, shall not administer puberty blockers or hormones for the purpose of changing a minor's sex, exempts surgeries for those diagnosed with sexual development disorder. If a licensed health care provider violates this section, they shall have their license revoked after the proper hearings with the board. It allows for civil action to recover damages from injuries suffered as a result of violating this section before the latter of the date the person turns 30 years of age or within 3 years from the time the person discovered the injury or damages. And lastly, it allows a health care provider to conduct services at any time to assist a patient in detransition from a drug or hormone. That is what the committee substitute does, Mr. Speaker, and I would move for adoption of House Committee Substitute 1. This is a process that has been used for many years. Typically, this process is only used for bills that have already been debated, which was over 2 hours on this floor last week, or bills that have been moving through the process. Senate Bill 150 was debated on their floor, passed out. It's been in this body for quite some time. We move legislation very quickly at this point in the session because we are at that point of being out of time. This bill is 9 pages long. I had someone walk up to me just a few minutes ago and said, I've read this thing 3 times sitting on the floor and I've made 2 pages worth of notes. Everybody knows what's in this bill. And we've been on this floor debating this on TV that is broadcast to people all over this state. And I will say that the comments about the people are going to see you, you're going to get elected out, all those things, and the polling that has been brought up here, when it comes to this issue, polling doesn't matter to me because I believe it's the right thing to do. And, Mr. Speaker, you and I have been involved in a lot of polling over the years. And we both know, and many of us in this body know, it depends on how the poll is conducted, the audience that's targeted, and the question that has been asked. And they haven't told you any of that. But I'm sitting here right now with a poll that was done just last month. It was a statewide broadcast poll. And it asked this question: do you believe it should be against the law for parents to provide a minor with prescriptions or surgeries to affirm their chosen gender? The total, 66% of Kentuckians said it should be. 90%, almost 90% of Republicans said it should be. 64% of independents and 57% of moderate Democrats said it should be. That's what the people of Kentucky are asking us to do. This is what's right. Mr. Speaker, I'm not the sponsor of this bill that's been said many times on the floor. The sponsor is on the board there. I'm carrying the bill for him on the floor. But I know the sponsor, and I know his heart, and I know he wouldn't be doing this unless he believed this was the right thing to do. He cares for people. And I think my record speaks for itself in this body, for how I love all people and what the things that I have done to try to help all children across this state. And I think you all know that I wouldn't be doing this on the floor and carrying this bill if I didn't believe in my heart it was the right thing to do. But I have a 16-year-old son who can't decide on what he wants to be when he goes to college right now. Sometimes he can't even decide what he wants to do next week. We've heard testimony from children throughout this process that said they felt like they've been forced into this in some way, whether that's psychologically or mentally forced into it, or maybe their parents chose that for them and it wasn't the right choice. But if we're going to protect children, we need to ensure that the surgery or drugs that completely alter their life and alter their body is not something we should be allowing until they are adults and can choose that for themselves. This is the right thing to do for these children. It's just to wait till they're a little bit older to make that choice. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move passage of Senate Bill 150 as amended by House Committee Substitute 1.